Welcome to Face to Face, connecting theater makers to the public, a program from the Legacy Theater and socialdistancetheater.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Face to Face. I'm Tess Adams, and I am so thrilled to be interviewing a fascinating dancer, writer, performer, and artistic director. He has danced in Going Up, Rockabye Hamlet, and Bring Back Birdie with Cheetah Rivera, and Almost Gone with the Wind, all on Broadway, and holds an MFA in dance from Sarah Lawrence. Some of his original plays include Swan Lake Calhoun, published by Samuel French, The Mar Vista, developed during his fellowship at LABA 14th Street Y, The Mad Seven, which he has taken to venues all over the country and then developed into The Mad Dancers with the nurturing of Mark Taper Forum, Center of the Star, and more. He is the founder and artistic director of dance and performance company Mystical Feet. His work has been produced at theaters including McCarter, Mark Taper Forum, San Diego Rep, Cornerstone Theater of Los Angeles, Theater J, Mixed Blood, and Actors Theater of Louisville, to name a few. He is also the recipient of the Kennedy Center New American Plays Award, the NEA TCG Playwright in Residence Grant, and the Playwright Center of Minneapolis Jerome Fellowship. He is also a publishing scholar whose essays appear in various anthologies and journals. Please welcome Mr. Yehuda Hyman. Hello.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And that's not even everything.
Oh.
How are you? You're in Brooklyn. How are you holding up?
I am doing well. Yes, I'm pretty much quarantined.
You've stayed enough times, maybe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have to remind myself of that because it's true, but like everyone else, it's a challenging time, but here we are, making theater in my room, my studio.
Yes. Your company, Mystical Feet, which you founded in 2014, correct?
Yes.
You have been rehearsing via Zoom?
Yes, we did a 4-week rehearsal period a month ago. Yeah, and I'm currently editing. I don't know what happened. Excuse me 1 second. I'm editing the 30, 40, 50 videos we made to put together something, yeah.
Did you record on Zoom or did you record on phones and cameras?
It's all recorded on Zoom.
Wow.
Well, it's very raw. I didn't intend that this was going to be a finished piece, but I have this footage which I hope is interesting. We'll see. And so that's yes.
How are you hoping to share that piece, and what is it called, if you know
yet? It takes me a while because I don't really have a title. This is a big project that I think I'm going to be doing for many years.
Okay.
It's going into mystical tales from different spiritual practices.
Okay.
The Hasidic world, 17th, 18th century Hasidic world, I should say. Eventually the Sufi world and other worlds. And also into the lives of dancers who were using dance as a means of transcending into the spiritual, like Isadora Duncan in her time. So it's a big project. I'm working with 5 wonderful young people, dancers. We had scheduled a live performance, a week of live performances in June in New York City that the place was booked, the whole thing. Anyway, we had to cancel that. So ultimately it's to be live, live is it. Live theater, but we don't know. I don't foresee that happening before next fall.
Mm-hmm.
So
you'll at least curate some sort of drama.
Yeah, I hope to start showing because I want to share what we're doing, and actually even the process. We're definitely in process right now, definitely in process.
So to explain a little bit about your company, we discussed a little bit before we started taping, that it's not quite dance theater, as you said, it's heavily text-based. So it's sort of a hybrid dance and performance, but the mission is to create visceral dance experiences that speak directly to the world we live in. And you draw inspiration from the mystical streams of different religious practices.
Right. I like to say spiritual practices. It's a
Spiritual.
little easier right now because there's so much baggage
Yes.
around the word religious, which I understand. Yes, what you said is true. Very good. Yes. It's a little hard to define. So I'm a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still dancing. And a choreographer, but I'm also a writer. And there was this struggle through many years, like to define myself, because I know it's more comfortable to people like, what are you? What are you? Are you a writer? Oh, you can't do both, but that's what I do. And there were times when I stopped dancing and choreographing and I just was writing. And then I came back to dance full throttle. So now it's really a meld of both. I sort of think of it in a way, if you were watching a musical theater performance and instead of those high peaks when the people were going to sing a song, they danced it. They danced their emotions. So everything that I do up to this point is really story driven because I love stories, and I love mythological stories and ancient stories. Mm-hmm. So because there's ancient wisdom that I think, especially right now, is so helpful for us. So I'm taking, right now, this may change later on, but I'm taking these stories and I'm working with these people, and in the rehearsal, we're crafting them, and then we're writing and I'm writing and we're dancing, and that's what they are, yeah, that's what they are. So, and it's very performance also. It's really, the performer is driving it ultimately. Mm-hmm. It's not and it won't be when we do it live either. It's not driven by so much stage design. It's pretty much happening on a bare stage. Mm-hmm. Because it comes from storytelling. It actually comes from, is this too much? Just no, you can hold up this, you can hold up the sign, stop. I was very moved pretty early on when I saw a dancer from India doing Bharatanatyam, which is one person on a stage using her body to tell a story. And that I thought, wow, that's incredible. I was also drawn by nightclub. At a very young age, I was taken to see performers like Sammy Davis Jr. and early Liza Minnelli. And one person on the stage, and those people were storytellers. I mean, they were great singers and dancers, but they were storytellers. I was like, wow, they're driving that. So it's also that, and I'm working with my young company to pull that out of them, that they're the whole show. They can play many characters, and they can express many emotions and travel to many worlds just as they are, just on the bare stage.
Very, very cool. And the first project of Mystical Feet was the Mar Vista, which is sort of a memoir piece about the life of your mother, Sarah.
Yes.
And this was created during your fellowship at LABA, the Laboratory of Jewish Culture, and 14th Street Y. And this was a 6-character production or 6-performer production.
I think it's 6. It's either 5 or 6. I would have to...
Including yourself.
Yeah, 6. I think it's 6. Yes.
Yeah. And you go through your mother's life from her upbringing in Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution, correct? And then all the way to several areas in the U.S., ending with Los Angeles or Hollywood, California. So tell me about, you founded the company, but you were also nurturing this piece that you'd been working on for several years in your fellowship and as a graduate student. Was the impetus to have a home for your piece, or was it to kind of that then that company would be able to have something to perform, or they just kind of came simultaneously at the same time?
Right. That's a big question. And also, you've done your research. Thank you.
Of course.
You know, starting out as an actor and a dancer who was always auditioning, and then a professional choreographer who was being hired by other people, you know, there's a lot of waiting around. And I had been doing this kind of work for a while, and I just, the impetus was that to proclaim that this work continues. It's not dependent on a huge grant or some theater saying you can do this. It is Mystical Feet Company is creating work all the time, you know. And the other big difference was at the point I did it, it was a big shift. I had been mostly playwriting, where I wrote a play, usually commissioned. I sent it off. I was not in it. This was me gathering performers and creating a company. Mm-hmm. So they're very much a part of it. So it's a Mystical Feet Company. It's also proclaiming the kind of work that I am now interested in, which is really, as I said, this wonderful, I wish I knew her name, but it was long ago. I don't remember, this wonderful dancer from India, but also the work of Peter Brook that I'd seen in Germany, where he took a little African tale and just exploded it on a bare stage, just with a percussionist and the actors. So this was a way for me to say, this is what we're doing, right? You know, so at first it was just in my head, right? Mystical Feet Company. And then it started to become a reality. We, as you said, I actually started working on this in my last year. It was my thesis at Sarah Lawrence College. Laba developed it over several years. You know, first it was 20 minutes, and then it was an hour, and then it was a full length, and they produced it all the way through that development period. And then we got to do it at the Signature Theater a year ago.
Congratulations.
For a run, and that was a big, you know, that was uptown, Times Square. So, and now I'm in a different mode with my group, in that this feels like we're working on a long body of work that we might be working on for 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know, you know. Along the way, we're going to show, but it's not like we're doing this thing, we're doing this show, here it is. This is a body of work because it interests me, because I'm drawn to it, because I'm passionate about it. So that's what Mystical Feet is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'd love if you could talk about this piece that's now been done at several venues, had several kind of higher profile runs, and just talk about your interest in your mother's life and sort of how that developed. I mean, she had a very, very interesting life.
Here's my mother at age 13. I don't know if you can see that.
Wow.
Yeah. In Istanbul, where she grew up. Yeah.
Wow.
She wanted to be a dancer. She wasn't allowed to be a dancer.
So did she encourage your dancing?
My mother, okay, so I was compelled to do this. My mother had passed away at age 92 in 2009. And I had been slowly over the years interviewing her because she had the most delicious, wild, somewhat inappropriate tales to tell about her life and about her love life over the years before she met my father. I just knew, again, it's like I hear these stories like, oh my God, you know, how, but then I started to write it as just a play, and it didn't work. And I wrote out an entire play, and I had to kind of toss it away for a couple of years. And then when I was doing my MFA in dance and finding a way to connect the dance, because dance was so important in life. She wasn't a professional dancer, but she gave me dance. She would take me and my siblings, my brother and sister, and dance us around the room to what we now call Roma music. We don't call it gypsy music anymore. Roma music, Russian music, any kind of music. And that's how I grew up, you know, dancing around the room with my mother. She danced. I wasn't there, I was in New York, but she passed away in LA the night before she left, and she was very ill before she left this world. My brother and his wife took her to a Mexican restaurant, and she heard salsa music and got up. She couldn't even stand, held onto a chair and did her dance, you know. So that was her drive to dance. And she definitely was not a stage mother in any way, you know. But she just gave me that love of, you know, dance. So I wanted to, but I was also just very fascinated. So the subtitle of the play is In Search of My Mother's Love Life. So just a little taste, my mother was in Istanbul during World War II. She was a 20-year-old woman, Jewish woman, who decided that she wanted to become a Catholic nun. She went into training with a priest, and they had a 2-year, very intense relationship. And this is on my mother. I know that's also very loaded now because you might think of a priest and a young woman. She loved him very deeply. And this was the great love of her whole life. So I just thought it was a great story. And the piece was like, how do you tell this story? How does a son, a gay son, tell this kind of like very sexual story about his mother? And, you know, we had a very, very close relationship. And so that's it. And and everyone in it. So I'm a character, I'm me narrating this piece, but also playing little roles, but mostly I'm like the chorus boy, the chorus. And then I have these young actors playing. I have a wonderful Amanda Giselle. I met her at college. She was an undergrad. She was 19 years old when we started. Playing my mother from the age 5 till 92.
Wow.
So this was developed really over 4.5 years, just the performance part. And also with the other actors, Ron and Dwight and Ryan and all these people, and Jacob. Yeah, so that's it. And it's very much what I was talking about. And it goes back and forth in time, and they're talking, and then all of a sudden they dance the next part of the story. You know?
This kind of goes with a question that I have, that this is kind of an incredible journey that you have audiences go on with you. And I'm wondering if you ask anything from them in terms of the way that they engage or suspend disbelief, or do you see that as kind of being the responsibility of yourself and the other performers, that you really pull them in and that your physicality does that job for them?
Okay, that's a great question. I asked them to turn off their cell phones. Really, seriously. I feel like we're in this room together. And because, like I spoke of earlier, this work is ultimately very performance. It's very intimate, right? So we're right there. We're with them. Sometimes there's not usually audience interaction, but sometimes there's a little bit, but we're there. The work is, for some people, it's not spoon-fed. It's not like, I'm just going to sit back and you're going to throw this story. It's mysterious in a way, and things are revealed as they go along. And I think this goes for all my work, because I like that. That's something I like as an audience member. On the other hand, it's I think, audience friendly enough. I'm not trying to sell this, I'm just trying to describe it. That, because I also come from a very, as you know, bring back Birdie, I come from a very concrete musical theater background also, and I like to be entertained. I like to be told a story. I like that. So I think it's both. I think they have to work a little bit in the beginning, and then it comes, things are revealed. Everything is happening as it happens, right?
Yes.
Everything is actually happening as it happens. So hopefully they have a big experience by the end of it. And I think, I think in the Mar Vista that really happened enough. Almost every performance you could hear people crying, and you could, as you know this, I don't know if it's happened, but of course the most wonderful thing is when there's just this like intense silence, and it's a palpable, you feel it.
It's focus.
And you feel that from the audience. I'm getting chills as I feel that. And that happened several times. That's that I know. And we're aware of that. We're feeling them. It's not like they're, and maybe it's also because we never have done these shows for long runs. We've just done them for like 3 weeks or something. I think it would be difficult to do that intensity. That's why I think ultimately this is a company I hope will tour and do, like 2 weeks here or 3 weeks here, not like we're gonna do this show night after night, because I think it's very demanding. Physically, it's very hard, and emotionally, it's very hard, so.
How do you take care of yourselves and prepare for that evening or afternoon?
So I insist on doing a physical warm-up with the actors. Towards the end of the last time, they were doing their own warm-up, but they were on the stage. You have to do a physical warm-up. You cannot get on a stage and do this. I mean, by the time we're up and running, they've gone through so much with this experience that they're ready to do it, and they want to do it. That's how I feel. And they're in it. They're in it because they're actually in it. I mean, there are things that came out of rehearsal, improvisations, where they're actually saying their own dialogue, and they're actually playing themselves at certain parts. So they're in it, It's them. It's them becoming other characters usually. It's the transformation, right? So they're ready and they're invested, but the physical readiness is really, they have to. In that way, it's a dance company.
Do you exercise at all the day of, or are you kind of just taking care of letting your body rest at that point? The show is the exercise.
Yeah, no, the show is, I don't do anything. I'm like one of those people who gets to the theater 2 hours before the show.
Okay, yes.
If not earlier.
Yeah, me too.
And I am doing a full hour of warm-up, it starts with a lot of relaxation and a lot of breathing, but I'm getting in the zone.
Yeah, and even just being in that space is exercise in some ways.
I'm not, it was interesting, like this last iteration, all the men had to share the same dressing room, which I haven't done in a long time.
Yeah.
It was fine, but, and everyone has their own thing, and I don't want to say, and some people like to, joke and whatever, and when I was a chorus boy, I was all about that. But I need to have quiet, because I'm just sort of like getting ready, and it's also like storing energy to be able to release when you get on the stage. That's how I feel about it personally.
So I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your kind of life and artistic journey.
There's a lot of it.
There is. Well, don't age yourself.
I don't have to. It's just
a lot of life in a short span.
Yeah.
So you were born in Los Angeles.
Hollywood, on Sunset Boulevard.
Hollywood, to parents who immigrated from Poland and Russia.
Yes.
And you were mentored in ballet growing up by, I'm going to butcher her name,
Go for it.
Tatiana
Yabushinska.
Okay. And we talked about sort of the your mother's influence on you dancing. But was this, I mean, were you guys paying for these lessons, or was there a barter? Like, how were you were able to make this work?
Right. So no, we didn't have money. We were very working class. My father was a tailor. My mother was a nurse. And then my father couldn't work anymore. He had a bad auto accident. It was Los Angeles. So there was no money. So I had been doing summer theater, and an older dancer arranged for me to meet Tatiana Yabushinska, who in the dance world is a legend. She was from the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo. She was one of the 3 famous baby ballerinas. They were 13 years old and, you know, dancing all over the world. They were extraordinary. Anyway, her studio was in Beverly Hills, and she sized me up. I was 15 at the time, and she offered me a work exchange scholarship. So sadly, I was not a great cleaner. And she would be after me, but it was an incredible opportunity. So from that moment, I went every day, 7 days a week. My father would drive me after school. He'd sit in his car. I would go upstairs and dance. Now, and I would clean the studio. I would paint the dressing rooms. What was interesting to me, one of the things, I mean, the training was incredible, but a lot of old Hollywood stars from the golden age of musicals took fitness classes from Tatiana in the morning. Ray Bolger, Sid Charisse, Leslie Caron, all these people were around.
Wow.
Juliet Prowse, who I worshipped, not so known now, came and rehearsed there. She brought in her 2 toy poodles. They peed all over the dance floor. I mopped it up. I was thrilled to mop up Juliet Prowse's dog piddle because I loved her. I was like, I'm mopping up Juliet Prowse. You know, it was like that. Leslie Caron, who I just, oh my God, idolized. You know, so nice as a person, because she was a dancer. She was always a dancer. You know, dancers are downer. So that was the atmosphere there. And that's where I started. That's really, I had done, I'm also really a jazz dancer. I mean, my training before that was jazz dancing, but this is really where I became a dancer. Consciously, this was it. This was the beginning.
And then you went to an art school in Belgium.
Yes, I auditioned. So it was interesting. I was sent to audition for Balanchine for a scholarship, which I got. But at the same time, I flew to New York and auditioned for Maurice Béjart, who at the time, he was huge in Europe. Here, not so much. The dance critics did not like him. He was very outrageous. He glorified the dancing man. And it was very gender fluid. I mean, his men had like this eye makeup and, you know, dancing little nothings. And they were gorgeous, but they also got to be expressed. They weren't just lifting.
Yes, yeah.
Down. So little, you know, 16-year-old me seeing that, because I saw it first on television, I was like, oh, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. So I flew to New York, I got the scholarship. Tatiana was furious because she wanted me to go to Balanchine, but I went. I was way too young. I was 16 and a half. I'd never been away from home. I was living on my own above a Greek bar in Brussels with no heat, no hot water, toilet 3 flights down. It didn't work out. So I didn't stay there. I was supposed to be there for 2 years. I didn't stay too long, but it was looking back, I see how influential it was for me because his work was so much about theatricality.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just American sort of postmodern classicism where it's just about the movement, which is great. It was really about the performer, so the genre.
And then when you returned, you started working in New York, right?
No, so I came back to LA with my tail between my legs. It was a hard time. I was an usher, a theater usher at what was the Huntington Hartford Theater, the Doolittle Theater. I was working as an usher. And then I auditioned for a show at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. I went to an open call. I was 17 and a half, and I got the job. It was Gone with the Wind, directed by Joe Layton, starring Leslie Ann Warren as Scarlett and Pernell Roberts. Music and lyrics by Harold Rome, book by Harold Horton Foote, cast of 45, 50, a horse on the stage. It was the most exciting, thrilling. I was one of the Tarleton twins. I don't know if you know the movie.
Yes.
But oh, Miss Scarlett, will you sit with me at the barbecue? If you can imagine me. All right. But it was a thrilling experience, and I thought it was the greatest show ever in the history of the world. I got to die 2 times in the show. I was, a young soldier getting shot. In another scene, they carry me across the stage. I come back, I'm dancing. And we opened in LA at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which if you don't know is like Lincoln Center there. Horrible reviews. We got to San Francisco. The title of the review in San Francisco was "The South Falls Again." And I was devastated. It was an early education. I had just turned 18 when we got to San Francisco. That, oh my God, this can happen. How is this possible? This is such a beautiful show. And we closed. They closed us down. That's a long answer. What was the question?
No, that was great.
That's how I start. Then I went to New York. Then a year, that's it. Then I went to New York, and I spent 10 years in New York, mostly dancing in shows, doing the whole thing, summer stock, touring, Broadway.
When did you begin writing?
I had always written.
Yes, I mean,
But that was so then I would be very frank. I was a 23-year-old balding dancer who tended towards chubbiness. So the jobs, I wasn't like a good chorus boy look. So the jobs started getting smaller, and I started choreographing, right? But my own work and doing downtown concerts and what became quite serious work. Then I moved back to LA. This was a constant. I moved back and forth 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
Because I would get to New York. I love New York so much, but I couldn't afford the rent or whatever. Yeah. Then I would move back to LA. In LA, I really became a choreographer, and a choreographer in the commercial theater. I did a lot of stuff with Gordon Davidson at the Marte Forum. I was lucky to work with him. I loved him. I did a movie with Carl Reiner. Sadly, not a successful movie, but I loved him. But then what happened was and it's very clear to me now, in 1987, 88, 2 things happened. We were at the height of the AIDS epidemic, and I was losing very close dancer friends and was devastated. I was very young, and there was a lot of death suddenly. And the other thing was, you go through these periods in the theater where like everybody wants you, you're the hottest thing, and then nothing. So I was going through one of those periods, and the work I was getting as a choreographer was very unsatisfying to me. And I remember this very distinctly. I was sitting on Santa Monica Boulevard in front of a frozen yogurt shop with a friend of mine, James Carroll Pickett. I had directed a play he wrote, a very wonderful but very controversial play. And I said, I was very depressed. I was really depressed. People were dying. My life was over career-wise. I said, I don't know what I want to do anymore. And I said, but you know what? I always thought about writing. And he said, come to my writing workshop. I said, I don't have any money. He said, just come. So that was the beginning. A year later, I moved to San Francisco. I completely gave up everything. No more dancing, no more choreography. I'm just going to write. I worked as a temp for the next 15 years of my life. Mostly full-time. in insurance companies, in a synagogue, anything, you know. And I temped and I wrote. And then I started getting, you know, plays produced and grants and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I really wasn't dancing at all. And I wasn't choreographing either. I just reached the end of that. Mm-hmm. Right?
Wow. Okay. And so then you start getting plays produced and eventually go to Sarah Lawrence for an MFA in dance. So you do return to dance.
Yeah, it had a lot to do with the death of my mother.
Okay.
And understanding, and actually after she died, I was very, very, very depressed for a year. And the only thing that made me feel good was taking a dance class or going to a tango salon or flamenco. I was getting into flamenco. So, and it was really just that. It was like, this is getting me through. This is making me feel okay. And then it became like, this is crazy, because I have to be honest, by this time I'm in my 50s already. And I'm like, I just kind of want to dance now. Which is like strange, but okay. And I'm taking more classes, and I was asked to come to Sarah Lawrence and teach a guest workshop in Hasidic dance, because I know something about that. And I was there, and I met Sarah Rudner, who was one of Twyla Tharp's, and still is, muse, was in her company at the beginning, formative. And she runs the dance program. And I loved Sarah Rudner. I'd never met her, and I love this person. And I was taking the train back, and I thought, maybe I'll apply for the MFA. So at this point, I'm like 55 years old, and I'm applying for an MFA dance. It's a full-time dance program, 9 a.m. every day till 6 at night. And I thought, this is crazy. And plus I had to audition. I had to do a dance audition to get in. It wasn't like they went, oh, come. Yeah. Credits. I had to audition. That was the worst part. And I got in, and every step of the way, I thought, okay, I'll just do this far and see how it goes, and then I can audition. And then I got in, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go get my MFA for 2 years. And it was it was difficult. I really hurt myself a lot the first year, because I was like, I could dance, but my body wasn't ready to do it. So I was like pulling things, because I wasn't ready. So I worked through that and did a lot of, muscle building to be able to do it. And it was fantastic. And it changed everything. I'm really, it's not easy, but I recommend it, Sorry about the student loan that I had to take out, but we'll see what happens with that. But,
So, and then during that time, you started merging writing and dance?
Yes, because this was a way, because I'd been gone from dance and choreography for so long, this is like beginning all over again. And what do I really want to do? And because Sarah Lawrence really cultivates creativity and adventurousness and taking chances, there were no rules. I could really try and fail. And I did. My first piece I made was, I love doing it, but it sort of didn't work at all, but it worked in different ways, but that's it. And I was able to go very deeply. The second piece I made was really about my father. So that's where I started doing memoir in dance, and it was very personal and hard to do. And then my second year, I had sort of made a promise to my mother. It was like a deathbed promise that I was going to tell her story. Really, I did. Actually, I did physically. I remember being by her bed. She was in a coma, but I said, I'm going to do this. And also, so my birth name is Lawrence, Yehuda. That's a whole other interview. We'll do that another time. But my birth name is Lawrence. I was going to Sarah Lawrence College. My mother's name is Sarah. I remember the day I knew I went in an audition. I was pretty clear I was going to get it. And I thought, Lawrence has to do a piece about Sarah. So that was it. So the second year was primarily, and at Sarah Lawrence, you develop work over the whole semester. I could do like a minute. I could do like, how do I do this? How do I do it? So it was totally about that experience. And plus, I was taking a technique class every morning for an hour and a half. And so, and I had to learn lighting design, and we had to do our own costuming and all these, you know.
So you learned a lot of the technical skills to be able to better produce your own work.
Exactly. That's what that program is about. If you're going to be a choreographer in the contemporary dance world, modern contemporary, you need to know how to do those things. And so it was great. I also learned dance history. I saw things I had never seen before. I had this incredible teacher, Roseanne Tom. She passed away. And actually she got very sick, and after I graduated, I took over her class. I taught her what was to be her final semester, American Dance History. So seeing all that, like seeing, you know, the beginnings of Alvin Ailey and Catherine Dunham and all this, you know, the African influence and Isadora, all these, you know, 100 years of what was created here was so inspiring, you know, so inspiring. The adventurousness, right, of these people who were, you know, these people, like, it was never about making money or anything. It was like, I need to do this. I need to express this.
Something that I've been trying to highlight or bring up, at least in these interviews, even if it's with Caucasian people like myself and the person that I'm interviewing. Even, let me rephrase that, even if I'm interviewing someone who is also white or identifies as white, I am trying to discuss and ask how the artist sees themselves moving forward, kind of post Black Lives Matter eruption this summer, incorporating any, like, what they've learned or any raised consciousness that they've experienced into kind of their artistic life.
Sure. Wow, this is a big, big thing. I'm glad you asked it. I've never been asked this publicly, but it's so important and something that we're all, it's kind of like rebirthing. We're all being rebirthed into a very important era of understanding of consciousness. Yeah, it completely affects me. So in the Mad Seven, for instance, I was telling 7 stories in 7 different characters from different parts of the Jewish diaspora. There's an Ethiopian Jewish diaspora. I was playing an Ethiopian. Now I was also playing a Yemenite, you know, a Yemenite Jew.
Mm-hmm.
So now I didn't even think about that. Well, maybe I did at that time. So I would have to really think about that in a very different way. I mean, I did research, I worked with Ethiopian dancers, but that's a for instance. I'm very conscious at this time. So, I mean, to be honest, right now, it just happened this way. The dancers I'm working with are all white.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that all the time. You know, it is how it happened for various reasons. But it's a really important thing to look at, you know, it's a really important thing to look at. And I hope that will change. And it's my aim to change that. I had a very great and interesting experience this summer. I was invited to an artist residency at Governor's Island.
Okay.
During the quarantine. It was just during the day I would go, I'd get on a ferry boat, go there. I had a studio to work in. It was scary, we were all masked. It was very hard also because we're in quarantine. But I was primarily with Black artists. And it was such a great experience for me to be hands-on, because we can go to meetings and big Zoom things, and those are important, and I do that. In my school, I teach at Manhattan School of Music. They're doing amazing things in order to really integrate this awareness on Black Lives Matter into everything, the curriculum, the works they produce. But this is me, a white artist, in a very intimate experience with people, artists of color, you know, black artists. And I was so happy. I was like so hungry for that experience. And I got to show them my work, and I saw some of their visual artists working at my time. And it was such a satisfying exchange. It was such a great exchange for me. And I hope that's where we go and go and go.
Yes.
The next part of this big project I'm doing is venturing into the world of Sufi dance, Islamic dance. So that's a big door to open, right? Because I'm going outside of my white Eastern European life into something that is not my life. Now, I've spent time and had some experience in Sufi communities, but I'm not a Sufi and I'm not Islamic. So I'm very, very conscious of being a traveler. And it's a yeah, I just think it's like constant awareness.
Yes.
What am I bringing this to this, and actually really being able to listen. I think, you know, about a year ago, the head of my department at Manhattan School of Music said, you have to read White Fragility. This was a year ago. You have to read it. She's telling all the teachers, you need to read this. So I did. Have you read it?
I have not. I've read some other books.
So it's a tough read, you know, because you have to read it and you have to go, yeah, that's me. I don't like that that's me, but that's me. And then you have to go from there. And yeah.
Well, thank you, Yehuda, and thank you for discussing that. I know sometimes we get tongue-tied, but I still like to, you know, make it a part of our discussion.
I'm so glad you did. It's so important.
And I want to say thank you so much for being a part of Face to Face. We're so lucky to have you.
Thank you for joining us on Face to Face. We would like to thank our sponsors, Oak Tree Development and the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, and Brad Ross for the themed music. You can follow us on legacytheaterct.org.